So let me ask you a question. This chapter is called A Bushel of Learning. Let's see if anybody has ever come across this word called bushel. Yes. Okay, that's not a message from anyone. I thought that was a message from somebody.
Yeah.
Is there anyone who knows the meaning of bushel? Yeah. Take a guess. You may have learnt a song with this word in your school songs. You may have read this or heard this word in a song. So a bushel is a unit of measurement. All right, children. So here he calls this chapter a bushel of learning. So he's measuring whatever learning he had by bushels. So oh, Akriti wants to be unmuted. Harshita.
So, Akriti, if you raise your hand, it's very easy for Harshita to spot your name and
Yeah.
unmute you.
This is for all the participants here. You can just simply raise your hand whenever you need to give any response to ma'am or sir, and I'll be unmuting you.
Akriti, do you want to say something before I start reading?
Harshita, just see. Akriti will be right in the beginning of the list anyway, so I think it should be easy. Jai Hind, Soumya. Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Yes. Is it Akrit who wanted to speak or Akriti? Who wanted to speak? Okay, we'll come to Akriti as we go along with the reading. And let me just start so that we don't waste any more time. So this chapter is called A Bushel of Learning. Scarcely had we settled into the strawberry pink villa before mother decided that I was running wild and that it was necessary for me to have some sort of education. But where to find this on a remote Greek island? As usual, when a problem arose, the entire family flung itself with enthusiasm into the task of solving it. Each member had his or her own idea of what was best for me, and each argued with such fervor that any discussion about my future generally resulted in an uproar. Okay, what's an uproar? Can anyone give me the meaning of this word or guess the meaning of this word, uproar? Okay, so uproar is a huge noise. Okay, a huge noise generally brought about by a lot of argument or agreement or disagreement, right? So, what is another word which is used here for enthusiasm? Okay, first he says the family flung itself with enthusiasm. And then in the next line, he says each argued with such fervor. Okay, see how many new words we're getting to learn. Is there anyone who wants to tell us or guess, take a guess at this meaning now? Fervor. Another word for something like enthusiasm, with a lot of spirit, with a lot of excitement. Everybody was discussing this matter that how should Gerald be educated? He needs to go to school. He can't be running wild in the Greek island. So each one of them had an opinion and they were all discussing this. So, plenty of time for him to learn, said Leslie. After all, he can read, can't he? I can teach him to shoot, and if we bought a boat, I could teach him to sail. But, dear, That wouldn't really be much use to him later on, Mother pointed out, adding vaguely, unless he was going into the merchant navy or something. I think it's essential that he learns to dance, said Margot, or else he'll grow up into one of these awful tongue tied hobbledehoys. Yes, dear, but that sort of thing can come later. He should be getting some sort of grounding in things like mathematics and French, and his spelling is appalling. Okay? Appalling meaning shocking. Okay? Because he hadn't gone to a formal school for long, so he didn't know how to spell. And his mother felt that he needed to go to a formal school, but his brothers and sister, they wanted him to do, or their suggestions were according to what their own occupations were. Literature, said Larry with conviction. That's what he wants, a good, solid grounding in literature. The rest will follow naturally. I've been encouraging him to read some good stuff. But don't you think Rabelais is a little old for him? Asked Mother doubtfully. Good, clean, fun, said Larry airily. It is important that he gets sex in its right perspective now. You've got a mania about sex, said Margot primly. It doesn't matter what we are discussing, and you always have to drag it in. What he wants is a healthy outdoor life. If he learned to shoot and sail, began Leslie, or stop talking like a bishop, you'll be advocating cold baths next. The trouble with you is you get in one of these damn supercilious moods when you think you know best, and you won't even listen to anyone else's point of view. With a point of view as limited as yours, you'll hardly expect me to listen to it. Now, there's no sense in fighting, said Mother. Well, Larry's so bloody unreasonable. I like that, said Larry indignantly. I'm far and away the most reasonable member of the family. Yes, dear, but fighting doesn't solve the problem. What we want is someone who can teach Jerry and who will encourage him in his interests. He appears to have only one interest, said Larry bitterly, and that's this awful urge to fill things with animal life. I don't think he ought to be encouraged in that. Life is fraught with danger as it is. I went to light a cigarette only this morning, and a damn great bumblebee flew out of a box. It was a grasshopper with me, said Leslie gloomily. Yes, I think that sort of thing ought to be stopped, said Margot. I found the most revolting jar of wriggling things on the dressing table of all places. He doesn't mean any harm, poor little chap, said Mother pacifically. He's so interested in all these things. All right, I just want you to tell me, what do you gather about the nature of Mother over here? What kind of a person do you think she is with this kind of a family around her? Can anyone just tell us, what do you think is her nature? What is she doing? Anyone?
Ma'am, I think the nature of the mother is that she is very supporting of her child's weird interests, like how she sees that he likes to collect animals and creatures, and
Okay.
she's not very angry about that.
All right, good. Any other thing that you notice? Okay, Tanishka says the one who wraps that child around with love and care, supporting with everyone around, irrespective of. Okay, that sentence was incomplete there. I couldn't read the whole thing. Anyway, very good analysis, very good interpretation. Good. Yes, Ishika, do you want to say something?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, I think a mother is the kind of person who just cares way more about her children. Like she
Yeah.
wants she wants her youngest child to become whatever she wants, but she doesn't want
Yes.
any fight in the family of relating to it.
Absolutely. And she shows a lot of patience, right? And you can see how she's supportive of everyone and she doesn't, encourage them, even though each one is ready to bring down the other person and they're ready to fight, she tries to keep the peace between them and she holds everybody with a lot of support and love. Very good. Good. That's how we should read between the lines and understand characteristics of characters. Let's go ahead. Yes, Harshita. I wouldn't mind being attacked by bumblebees if it led anywhere, Larry pointed out. But it's just a phase. He'll grow out of it by the time he's 14. He's been in this phase from the age of 2, said Mother, and he's showing no signs of growing out of it. Well, if you insist on stuffing him full of useless information, I suppose George would have a shot at teaching him, said Larry. That's a brain wave, said Mother delightedly. Will you go over and see him? I think the sooner he starts, the better. Sitting under the open window in the twilight, with my arm round Roger's shaggy neck, I had listened with interest, not unmixed with indignation, to the family discussion on my fate. Now it was settled. I wondered vaguely who George was and why it was so necessary for me to have lessons. But the dusk was thick with flower scents, and the olive groves were dark, mysterious, and fascinating. I forgot about the imminent danger of being educated and went off with Roger to hunt for glowworms in the sprawling brambles. Sprawling brambles. Brambles are thorny bushes. How many of you have seen glowworms? Has anyone seen glowworms in the night? And do you know what they're called in Hindi?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Yes?
ma'am.
Yes. Tell me, Shivanshi.
Ma'am, they are called Jugnu in Hindi.
Yes, very good. And have you seen them?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, when I was a child, ma'am, I catch them.
All right. Okay, great. So they look so beautiful in the darkness. When they glow, they really look nice. And Gerald went to with Roger to hunt for glowworms. I discovered that George was an old friend of Larry's who had come to Corfu to write. There was nothing very unusual about this, for all Larry's acquaintances in those days were either authors, poets, or painters. It was George, moreover, who was really responsible for our presence in Corfu, for he had written such eulogistic letters about the place that Larry had become convinced we could live nowhere else. Eulogistic letters about the place. Eulogistic is in praise of. When you write things in praise of someone, the thing that you have written in praise of someone is called a eulogy. Okay, so he had written eulogistic letters praising Corfu and saying that it would be the best place for a writer to come and stay in and write, and that's how he had lured or made Larry come there. Now George was to pay the penalty for his rashness. He came over to the villa to discuss my education with Mother, and we were introduced. We regarded each other with suspicion. George was a very tall and extremely thin man who moved with the old disjointed grace of a puppet. His lean, skull like face was partially concealed by a finely pointed brown beard and a pair of large tortoise shell spectacles. He had a deep, melancholy voice, a dry and sarcastic sense of humor. Having made a joke, he would smile in his beard with a sort of vulpine pleasure which was quite unaffected by anyone else's reactions. Gravely, George set about the task of teaching me. He was undeterred by the fact that there were no school books available on the island. He simply, yes? Oh, I thought you were saying something to me. Just put your mic on mute, Swati, please. He simply ransacked his own library and appeared on the appointed day armed with a most unorthodox selection of tomes. Tomes are volumes of books, and to ransack is to go through in a very rough manner, just going through things and picking up. So he himself had so many books that he picked up huge volumes and brought it to Gerald's house to start off Gerald's education. Somberly and patiently, he taught me the rudiments of geography from the maps in the back of an ancient copy, Harshita ma'am, of Pear's Cyclopedia. English from books that ranged from Wilde to Gibbon. French from a fat and exciting book called Les Petites Leroux, and mathematics from memory. From my point of view, however, the most important thing was that we devoted some of our time to natural history, and George meticulously and carefully taught me how to observe and know and how to note down observations in a diary. At once, my enthusiastic but haphazard interest in nature became focused, for I found that by writing things down, I could learn and remember much more. The only mornings that I was ever on time for my lessons were those which were given up to natural history. Wonderful lesson for all of us. Best way to remember is to note down and to become observant. You see, children, it's very important for all of us to be observant. Whatever profession you are in, if you are not observant, then you don't really do justice to your profession. So whether you are a writer or a cook or a tailor or a teacher or a sailor, you need to have very good observation. And this is one way in which you can not only learn to observe, but you can also learn to preserve all your observations. You can note it down. I'm wondering how many of you are in the habit of writing a diary, of maintaining a diary. Does anyone do that anymore?
Yes, ma'am, I do,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay,
Yes,
very
ma'am.
good. It's a wonderful habit. At the end of the day, if you can write down whatever happened, anything of significance that happened, and years later, when you pick up this diary, you will be so happy to read this, to know that, so many years ago, this is what I had come across. Yeah? All right, good.
Like
Every morning,
memories.
pardon me?
Ma'am, like memories.
I think the mics are on and they're talking to somebody or the other. Yeah.
Ma'am, like memories.
Okay, yes, it will increase your memory. True. Every morning at 9, George would come stalking through the olive trees, clad in shorts, sandals, and an enormous straw hat with a frayed brim, clutching a wedge of books under one arm, swinging a walking stick vigorously. Good morning. The disciple awaits the master agog with anticipation, I trust. Okay, so look at his English. It's a little difficult and too formal. But here, who's the disciple and who's the master? So the disciple is Gerald, and the master is George. And Jerry is waiting agog. That means with a lot of enthusiasm, waiting with anticipation. He's waiting, wondering, what are we going to learn today? He would greet me with a saturnine smile. In the little dining room of the villa, the shutters would be closed against the sun. And in the green twilight, George would loom over the table, methodically arranging the books. Flies, heat drugged, would crawl slowly on the walls or fly drunkenly about the room, buzzing sleepily. Outside, the cicadas were greeting the new day with shrill enthusiasm. Yes, that's right, Divyanshu. Observation is more important than analysis. That's a very good statement you've made. Good. Let me see. Let me see, George would murmur, running a long forefinger down our carefully prepared timetable. Yes, yes, mathematics. If I remember rightly, we were involved in the Herculean task of discovering how long it would take 6 men to build a wall if three of them took a week. I seem to recall that we have spent almost as much time on this problem as the men spent on the wall. Ah, well, let us gird our loins and do battle once again. Perhaps it is the shape of the problem that worries you, eh? Let us see if we can make it more exciting. He would droop over the exercise book pensively, pulling at his beard. Then, in his large, clear writing, he would set the problem out in a fresh way. If it took 2 caterpillars a week to eat 8 leaves, how long would 4 caterpillars take to eat the same number? Now, apply yourself to that. While I struggled with the apparently insoluble problem of the caterpillar's appetites, George would be otherwise occupied. He was an expert fencer and was at that time engaged in learning some of the local peasant dances for which he had a passion. So while waiting for me to finish the sum, he would drift about in the gloom of the room, practicing fencing stances or complicated dancing steps, a habit that I found disconcerting to say the least, and to which I shall always attribute my inability to do mathematics. Okay, children, did you understand this? What is fencing? Which sport is called fencing? Yeah? Has anyone seen that? Who's
यस
a fence?
मैम
Yes? What is
यस
it? Tell me.
मैम वहाँ पे मैम तार लगी रहती है ताकि कोई
No, beta, that's a different
बाहर ना आ
fence.
सके
I'm talking about fencing as a sport. The fence that you're talking about is the border, on the border or on the periphery of a farm or a garden or a house. You have a fence. That's not what I'm talking about, though it's the same spelling. But fencing is a is fighting with a sword. It's a sport. Okay, not something which one would do in a battle, but fencing is something that men learned to fight with each other. Just two people would do fencing, right? So maybe later on we'll find a picture to show you.
Ma'am,
And yes, Tahir.
ma'am, fencing is a sports in which two people fight with each other with a sword
Yes, that's
of rod.
exactly what I said. Yeah. And it's an Olympic sport also. Okay. So, so here we are. So George was learning to fence as well as to dance. And while he gave Jerry mathematics sums to solve, he would be practicing his fencing and his dancing. And Jerry very good humoredly says here that probably he was so distracted by all this that he could never learn to do math. But look at the way George has tried to teach Jerry math. You know, he has brought his mathematics and connected it with what he likes. So instead of giving him a sum where he had to solve with people building a wall, he gave him the same problem with caterpillars and their food. So see how imaginative a teacher he was. Okay? Place any simple sum before me, even now, and it immediately conjures up a vision of George's lanky body swaying and jerking round the dimly lit dining room. He would accompany the dancing sequences with a deep and tuneless humming, like a hive of distraught bees. Turn-tee-tum-tee-tum, tiddle-tiddle-tum-tee-dee, left leg over, 3 steps right, tum-tee-tum-tee-tum-tee-dum, back round, down and up, tiddle-iddle-um-tee-dee, he would drone as he paced and pirouetted like a dismal crane. Then suddenly the humming would stop. A steely look would creep into his eyes and he would throw himself into an attitude of defense, pointing an imaginary foil at an imaginary enemy. His eyes narrowed, his spectacles a glitter, he would drive his adversary back across the room, skillfully avoiding the furniture. When his enemy was backed into the corner, George would dodge and twist around him with the agility of a wasp, stabbing, thrusting, guarding. I could almost see the gleam of steel. Then came the final moment, the upward and outward flick that would catch his opponent's weapon and twist it harmlessly to one side. The swift withdrawal, followed by long, straight lunge that drove the point of his foil right through the adversary's heart. Through all this, I would be watching him, fascinated, the exercise book lying forgotten in front of me. Mathematics was not one of our more successful subjects. How interesting. Okay. In geography, we made better progress. For George was able to give a more zoological tinge to the lesson. We would draw giant maps wrinkled with mountains and then fill in the various places of interest together with drawings of the more exciting fauna to be found there. Thus, for me, the chief products of Ceylon were tapirs and tea, of India tigers and rice, of Australia kangaroos and sheep, while the blue curves of currents we drew across the oceans carried whales and albatross, penguins and walrus, as well as hurricanes, trade winds, fair weather, and foul. Our maps were works of art. The principal volcanoes belched such flames and sparks. 1 minute, I think. Yeah. Harshita, you just need to scroll it up a little bit. Okay. Our maps were works of art. No. Go back to that page. What's happening? Okay, this is the page, Arshita. Just hold on to this.
No, next page.
No. This is not the right page.
Next one.
Next one.
No, you're going back.
You're
You have
going
to go the other
backward.
side. Go the other side.
Yeah. One more. One more.
No, you've gone back again.
Again, you're going back. Shall I read from my text?
Yeah.
I think I'll do that.
You have to go. It's
that
not
I
going
think
ahead, Harshit.
there's some error in loading of one page that we were reading.
Okay.
You can share the screen meanwhile.
Ashita, you'll have to do the sharing. I won't be able to share the screen, but I can read from the text that I have. We were at this page which says, in geography, we made better progress. Okay, children, just pay attention while Harshita gets us the right page. In geography, we made better progress, for George was able to give a more zoological tinge to the lesson. We would draw giant maps, wrinkled with mountains, and then fill in the various places of interest, together with drawings of the more exciting fauna to be found there. Thus, for me, the chief products of Ceylon were tapirs and tea, of India, tigers and rice, of Australia, kangaroos and sheep, while the blue curves of currents we drew across the oceans carried whales, albatross, penguins, and walrus, as well as hurricanes, trade winds, fair weather, and foul. Our maps were works of art. The principal volcanoes belched such flames and sparks who feared they would set the paper continents alight. Yeah, that's right. This is the page. No, 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 no. You were on the right page just now. Yes, this is the page. The principal volcanoes belched such flames and sparks, one feared they would set the paper continents alight. The mountain ranges of the world were so blue and white with ice and snow that it made one chilly to look at them. Our brown, sun drenched deserts were lumpy with camel humps and pyramids, and our tropical forests so tangled and luxuriant that it was only with difficulty that the slouching jaguars, lithe snakes, and morose gorillas managed to get through them, while on their outskirts, emaciated natives hacked wearily at the painted trees, forming little clearings apparently for the purpose of writing, coffee, or perhaps cereals across them in unsteady capitals. Our rivers were wide and blue as forget me nots, freckled with canoes and crocodiles. Our oceans were anything but empty, for they had not frothed themselves into a fury of storms or drawn themselves up into an awe inspiring tidal wave that hung over some remote, palm shaggy island. They were full of life. Good natured whales allowed unseaworthy galleons, armed with a forest of harpoons, to pursue them relentlessly. Bland and innocent looking octopi tenderly engulfed small boats in their arms. Chinese junks with jaundiced crews were followed by shoals of well dentured sharks, while fur clad Eskimos pursued obese herds of walrus through ice fields thickly populated by polar bears and penguins. They were maps that lived, maps that one could study, frown over, and add to. Maps, in short, that really meant something. Our attempts at history were not at first conspicuously successful until George discovered that by seasoning a series of unpalatable facts with a sprig of zoology and a sprinkle of completely irrelevant detail, he could get me interested. Thus, I became conversant with some historical data which, to the best of my knowledge, have never been recorded before. Breathlessly, history lesson by history lesson, I followed Hannibal's progress over the Alps, his reason for attempting such a feat, and what he intended to do on the other side were details that scarcely worried me. No, my interest in what I considered to be very badly planned expedition lay in the fact that I knew the name of each and every elephant. I also knew that Hannibal had appointed a special man not only to feed and look after the elephants, but to give them hot water bottles when the weather got cold. This interesting fact seems to have escaped most serious historians. Another thing that most history books never seem to mention is that Columbus's first words on setting foot ashore in America were, "Great heavens, look, a jaguar." With such an introduction, how could one fail to take an interest in the continent's subsequent history? So George, hampered by inadequate books and a reluctant pupil, would strive to make his teaching interesting so that the lessons did not drag. All right. I think somebody's mic is on and there's a
Harshita.
Ashita, please put yourself on mute.
Thanks.
Thank you. Roger, of course, thought that I was simply wasting my mornings. However, he did not desert me, but lay under the table asleep while I wrestled with my work. Occasionally, if I had to fetch a book, he would wake, get up, shake himself, yawn loudly, and wag his tail. Then, when he saw me returning to the table, his ears would droop, and he would walk heavily back to his private corner and flop down with a sigh of resignation. George did not mind Roger being in the room, for he behaved himself well and did not distract my attention. Occasionally, if he was sleeping very heavily and heard a peasant dog barking, Roger would wake up with a start and utter a raucous roar of rage before realizing where he was. Then he would give an embarrassed look of our disapproving faces, his tail would twitch, and he would glance around the room sheepishly. For a short time, Quasimodo also joined us for lessons and behaved very well as long as he was allowed to sit in my lap. He would drowse there, cooing to himself the entire morning. It was I who banished him, in fact, for one day. He upset a bottle of green ink in the exact center of a large and beautiful map that we had just completed. I realized, of course, that this vandalism was not intentional, but even so, I was annoyed. Quasimodo tried for a week to get back into favor by sitting outside the door and cooing seductively through the crack. But, yes, I'll come to the meanings, beta, just a minute. But each time I weakened, I would catch a glimpse of his tail feathers, a bright and horrible green, and harden my heart again. Okay, somebody asked me the meaning of indignantly. It means very angrily and firmly. Okay, very, very firmly saying something. Now, you all remember who Quasimodo was? Whose name was Quasimodo? We read about him last week.
Ma'am,
Or
a
her,
pigeon.
rather. Yes, Tahir?
Ma'am, a pigeon.
A pigeon, right, yes. Okay, let's go on to, and remember Achilles? Who was Achilles? We had read about Achilles and Quasimodo. Yes? Who was Achilles? Harshita's hand is up. Would you want to answer that? So Achilles was the tortoise. Remember, he fell in the well one day and he passed away and they had buried him. You should remember these things as we read, okay? Achilles also attended one lesson, but he did not approve of being inside the house. He spent the morning wandering about the room and scratching at the skirting boards and the door. Then he kept getting wedged under the bits of furniture and scrabbling frantically until we lifted the object and rescued him. The room being small, it meant that in order to move one bit of furniture, we had to move practically everything else. After a third upheaval, George said that he had never worked with Carter Patterson and was unused to such exertions. He thought Achilles would be happier in the garden. So there was only Roger left to keep me company. It was comforting, it's true, to be able to rest my feet on his woolly bulk while I grappled with a problem. But even then, it was hard to concentrate, for the sun would pour through the shutters, tiger striping the table and the floor, reminding me of all the things I might be doing. There around me were the vast, empty olive groves echoing with cicadas, the moss-grown stone walls that made the vineyards into steps where the painted lizards ran, the thickets of myrtle alive with insects, and the rough headland where the flocks of garish goldfinches fluttered with excited piping from thistlehead to thistlehead. Realizing this, George wisely instituted the novel system of outdoor lessons. Some mornings he arrived carrying a large furry towel, And together we would make our way down through the olive groves and along the road that was like a carpet of white velvet under its layer of dust. Then we branched off to a goat track that ran along the top of miniature cliffs until it led us to a bay, secluded and small, with a crescent shaped fringe of white sand running round it. A grove of stunted olives grew there, providing a pleasant shade. From the top of the little cliff, the water in the bay looked so still and transparent that it was hard to believe there was any at all. Fishes seemed to drift over the wave wrinkled sand as though suspended in mid air, while through 6 feet of clear water you could see rocks on which anemones lifted frail colored arms and hermit crabs moved, dragging their top shaped homes. Okay, does anyone know anemones, hermit crabs? These are all water creatures. They all live under the water. Okay, try and find some pictures for yourselves to see and know what they are. And how many of you know what olives are? Have you seen, tasted olives? Yes or no? Greece is known for its olives. Yes, says Harshita. Okay. Anyone else who's seen and tasted olives? No? I'm sure you all have. Okay. Arini says yes. Okay, tell me, how do olives look? What fruit do they remind you of? Maria, can you tell me what fruit does the olive remind you of? And what color are they?
Ma'am, can I?
Yes, Talat?
Ma'am, they are of green colors.
Okay, olive green is a special green. Okay, it got its name from the fruit olive. Okay, and what is the fruit, very popular fruit in India that it reminds you of? What does it look like? Yes, it looks like a kiwi, no? Olives are much, much smaller than kiwis. What does it look like? An olive? It looks like an amla. Amla is rounder. Olive is more like an oval shape. Think a little more. If you've seen an olive full, no, pear is also very big, Arini. These look more like grapes, don't they? They look like grapes. Okay, I'm going to request Jugjeev sir to show us some pictures. Jugjeev sir was also showing us pictures of fencing a little while ago. So he will show us these pictures. Sir, do you want to do them now or a little later?
Let's, whatever you want. Harshita will have to take off and put it on again. So let's just
Okay,
read.
so I think I'll read the chapter and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
maybe just
yeah,
last
yeah.
5 minutes or so. Okay.
Sure, sure.
We would strip beneath the olives and walk into the warm, bright water to drift face down over the rocks and clumps of seaweed, occasionally diving to bring up something that caught our eye. A shell more brightly colored than the rest, or a hermit crab of massive proportions, wearing an anemone on his shell like a bonnet with a pink flower on it. Here and there on the sandy bottom grew rib shaped beds of black ribbon weed, and it was among these beds that the sea slugs lived. Treading water and peering down, we could see below the shining, narrow fronds of green and black weeds growing close and tangled, over which we hung like hawks suspended in air above a strange woodland. In the clearing among the weed bed lay the sea slugs, perhaps the ugliest of the sea fauna. Some 6 inches long, they looked exactly like overgrown sausages made out of thick brown carunculated leather, dim, primitive beasts that just lie in one spot, rolling gently with the sea's swing, sucking in seawater at one end of their bodies and passing it out the other. The minute vegetable and animal life in the water is filtered off somewhere inside the sausage and passed to the simple mechanism of the sea slug's stomach. No one could say that the sea slugs led interesting lives. Dully they rolled on the sand, sucking in the sea with monotonous regularity. It was hard to believe that these obese creatures could defend themselves in any way, or that they would ever need to. But in fact, they had an unusual method of showing their displeasure. Pick them out of the water, and they would squirt a jet of seawater out of either end of their bodies, apparently without any muscular effort. It was this water pistol habit of theirs that led us to invent a game. Each armed with a sea slug, we would make our weapons squirt, noting how and where the water struck the sea. Then we moved over to that spot, and the one who discovered the greatest amount of sea fauna in his area won a point. Occasionally, as in any game, feeling would run high. Indignant accusations of cheating would be made and denied. It was then we found our sea slugs useful for turning on our opponent. Whenever we made use of the sea slug's services, we always swam out and returned them to their forest of weed. Next time we came down, they would still be there, probably in exactly the same position as we had left them, rolling quietly to and fro. Having exhausted the possibilities of the slugs, we would hunt for new shells for my collection or hold long discussions on the other fauna we had found. George would suddenly realize that all this, though most enjoyable, could hardly be described as education in the strictest sense of the word. So we would drift back to the shallow and lie there. The lesson then proceeded while the shoals of little fish would gather about us and nibble gently at our legs. So the French and the British fleets were slowly drawing together for what was to be the decisive sea battle of the war. When the enemy was sighted, Nelson was on the bridge, bird watching through his telescope. He had already been warned of the Frenchmen's approach by a friendly gull, a oh, a greater black-backed gull, I think it was. Well, the ships maneuvered round each other. Of course, they couldn't move so fast in those days, for they did everything by sail. No engines, no, not even outboard engines. The British sailors were a bit, Harshita, yeah. The British sailors were a bit worried because the French seemed so strong. But when they saw that Nelson was so little affected by the whole thing that he was sitting on the bridge labeling his bird's egg collection, they decided that there was really nothing to be scared about. Okay, so Nelson was a very famous English naval commander. So this extract, which is within inverted commas, is part of the history lesson that George was trying to teach Gerald. Okay, so that's why it is in single inverted commas and it's part of the lesson. Okay, now we read about this lazy sea slug. And you know, in English, we have a word called sluggish. So now you know where it comes from. Okay, so when you're feeling lazy and you don't want to do anything, you just want to lie around, then you say, I'm feeling so sluggish. Okay, so it comes from this creature called slug, which is an embodiment of laziness and likes to keep lolling about, rolling about and lolling about in the water. Okay, all right. I think we are almost at the end of the chapter. We have a small little paragraph. The sea was like a warm, silky coverlet that moved my body gently to and fro. There were no waves, only this gentle underwater movement, the pulse of the sea rocking me softly. Around my legs, the colored fish flicked and trembled and stood on their heads while they mumbled at me with toothless gums. In the drooping clusters of olives, a cicada whispered gently to itself. And so they carried Nelson down below as quickly as possible, so that none of the crew would know he had been hit. He was mortally wounded, and lying below decks with the battle still raging above, he murmured his last words, "Kiss me, Hardy," and then he died. What? Oh, yes. Well, he had already told Hardy that if anything happened to him, he could have his bird's eggs. So, though England had lost her finest seaman, the battle had been won, and it had far reaching effects in Europe. Across the mouth of the bay, a sun-bleached boat would pass, rowed by a brown fisherman in tattered trousers, standing in the stern and twisting an oar in the water like a fish's tail. He would raise one hand in lazy salute, and across the still blue water you could hear the plaintive squeak of the oar as it twisted, and the soft clop as it dug into the sea. So, what an interesting way of getting educated, right? And he got educated in exactly the way that benefited him and his interests. So, this was about George. Slowly, we will read about another more interesting teacher, and he was Jerry's favorite, that is Theodore, because Theodore was a biologist and a zoologist, and he taught Jerry a lot about animals and creatures. So we'll read about that. And I just want to share that maybe in the next week, I should be able to show you some pictures of these tutors and of the Corfu Island, because in the latest book published, that is Gerald's kind of an autobiography that has been published this year to commemorate the centenary year of Gerald Durrell. So he has extracts from various books, and in that book there are some pictures. So I shall try and see if I can send it across. Maybe Jugdeep sir, I'll send it across to Manisha, and she could
Yeah,
display some of those pictures so the children can have a view of, all of us in fact could have a view of the kind of people that he was associated with and the place that he grew up in. Okay. So
that'd be
before
interesting.
we take any reflections from the children or any questions, I'll request Jugjeev sir to show us that fencing picture.
Right, right. For that, let me show you. This is what Wikipedia says a slug
Yes,
looks like.
slug. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's. You may have children. You would have definitely seen land slugs. You seen slugs during the rainy season? You'll see a lot of slugs in rainy, hilly places. And it's very interesting. We love to follow the slugs because as the slugs move, they let out a slimy kind of a trail, right? And wherever the slugs move, this trail goes behind them like that. So you can follow that trail to see where the slug has gone. How many of you have seen slugs?
yeah. Very common in the hills.
Very
Yeah,
common in the rainy season. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
watch out for slugs. We're not talking about earthworms. Earthworms are different from slugs. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And here's a wonderful picture of olives. See, some
Right.
in their natural state, the ones which are absolutely green, are in their natural state, and the others are preserved. Okay.
And some of you wrote in the chat that it's amla. It's not amla.
No, it's
Amla,
not amla.
amla in English is Indian gooseberry.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
so let me show you that back to fencing. Now, fencing, before that, I can show you this one as well, which is just so many things in this specific chapter.
Absolutely. Oh, here you are.
The sea
Lovely.
anemone, this one where,
Yes, the sea anemone.
yeah,
And it looks so pretty, but it's a dangerous creature. It can just suck things in it. Okay. Looks like a flower.
yeah, it looks like a flower, but it's
Yeah.
a dangerous creature. Then we also, you know, when you talking of different countries and different animals. Uh, Tapir
Yes,
of Sri
tapir we led.
Lanka.
Yes. It's also called the anteater.
So this is the tapir,
Yeah.
Sri Lanka.
I think we also read about the tapir when we were doing the inner life of animals. So there was a portion on the anteater and tapirs. Yeah.
Right. I'll show you the picture on fencing. But the
Mm.
interesting is anybody, uh, in the lady called Bhavani, the first Indian to
Yes.
represent India in fencing in the Olympics in 2020. So the first Indian, it was a
Yeah.
woman called Bhavani in the 2020 Paris Olympics. So
Right.
she's got an Asian bronze and I
Yes.
think Commonwealth gold.
Thank you, Jugjeev sir, for telling us that. Children, see the fencing. There's, like we said, it's generally between two people. You can see the swords, the fencing swords that each one is holding in his hand, and also you can see their dress. They're almost wearing kind of an armored suit so that they don't hurt themselves. Okay,
Yeah.
their faces are also masked, so that's how they go about it. You
So,
should watch out for that when you see the sport. You can Google it and see it. Yes, it's a type of fighting between two people, Shivanshi. Yeah. In England
Shiv,
and in other European countries, the men would challenge each other to a duel, and the duel was generally a fencing match. Okay, so with these thin swords, they would fight. Right. All
so
right. Thank you,
Shivanshi,
sir.
you told us that you used to capture Jugnus. What else did you collect? Anything else that you collect? Shivanshi?
Can you hear us, Shivanshi? Yeah, she says, sir.
Yeah, I mean, you have a good friend in Gerald.
Huh. Good. I think any one of you children who's interested in anything to do with nature or with wildlife, Gerald is such a beautiful example, and to know more about it and how he made this his hobby a career. That's what we need to also look at, how passionate he was about this, and he was able to do what he did only because he was so passionate and single mindedly he focused on something and he got what he wanted. That's the only way to go about getting what you want to get and doing what you like, right?
So
There was a
George,
question. Is there a question? Because I thought I saw a.
yeah, we'll
Yeah.
get to Divyanshu's question, but I was just wondering what children thought of the way George was teaching
Yes.
Gerald, right? Going outdoors, would they sort of like it? Does that
Yeah.
happen? Would it be of interest to them? I'm just curious. What do children think about this way of learning, being outdoors?
Would you like it, children? Going outdoors to learn, studying, reading. How many of you have classes, in fact, outdoors sometimes?
Do schools try and do it? I guess it's tough to do.
Yeah, it's tough to do, but I think once in a way, it all depends on where your school is placed and how much area you have in
Right.
and around the school. And okay, there are children who say yes,
Ma'am,
and
can I?
yeah, please.
Ma'am, in Sunbeam School, Balia, all the students from class 3 to 12th we go to the open classroom that is in our ground.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful! How lucky you are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's nice.
yeah. How many of you, as children, have gone on nature walks?
Ma'am, we go.
You go? Okay, good. So, in most of the schools that I've taught in, especially with the juniors, we would have these nature walk and take the children on a nature trail and prod them to look at a lot of things which they would otherwise miss. Because sometimes when we do walk in nature, also we miss seeing things. But look at Gerald's observation. We all have a lesson here. Not only Gerald, his teacher as well. And when we come across or read about his other teacher Theodore, you will see and learn more about observation and more about many creatures which we don't know anything about, just as we discovered so many things about so many creatures when we read Inner Life of Animals. Similarly, we will also discover many other things. And look at the way Gerald treats them as if they're almost human beings. When he talks about the pigeon being put out, he says that the pigeon was upset and it came and stood at the door and tried to plead and beg and ask very sweetly to be let in once again. And similarly, about when he talks about the dog, when the dog roared, and then when he realized that it was not the right place to have let out such a howl, Gerald describes him as being very embarrassed. So these are things that Gerald is imagining, but we really don't know. We also do that when we look at our pets. We imagine that they're trying to say something to us or they're trying to express something to us. So this is all that we need to pay attention to as we read along and as we hear the reading going on. Okay, right.
So, Harshita, if you can unmute Divyanshu. Divyanshu had a question. We can
Yeah.
answer that question. Yeah, Divyanshu, go ahead.
Are you there?
No, Divyanshu, then I'll come to you, Divyanshu. Right. Gone off again. So,
He's
yeah,
gone up.
Divyanshu, go ahead.
Am I audible, sir?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so my question is which one is important, duty or emotion? If a father is a police officer and his child committed a crime and the father is ordered to put him in prison, what should he do? Should he prioritize his emotion and his relation with his son, or follow his duty to help his country develop?
What do the other
Okay.
people think? What do others think? Anybody
What do
else?
the other children feel?
Yes, Myra.
Sir, I think that he should definitely do his duty because it's not a small thing.
Mm.
It's not a unimportant duty that he can kind of ignore and favor his child in it. The child has committed a crime, and if he does leave the child, maybe the child will get worse and commit even far worse crimes, which for
Yes.
the father will be very difficult to see himself. And I'm not saying that when he presents his child, it won't be difficult for him and he can just uh, turn off his emotions. It will be very hard for him. But in this case, if a child has committed a crime, he has to be put in the jail.
All right. That's
Anybody else? Any other
I
thought?
did
Anybody
say
else?
I did see some people who had put up in the chat that he should be prisoned. So, okay.
Anybody else who has a different point of view?
May I instead of the children
Yes,
Sure,
or
sure.
for the
Why?
Divyanshu,
children?
surely.
Right. Both his duty is both to set
Mm,
his child on the right path and also to
true.
protect the country. Now, a
Absolutely.
child sometimes putting the child into prison may make the child even worse because there are all sorts of people in the prison.
Mm,
So, and we need something more beyond putting the child into prison. It's not just that you put the child into prison and your duty is done. So
yeah.
if if the crime is so bad that you need to put him into prison, well, what can we do? That's the country's law. But what else can we do? How do we help the child to get out of the crime he has done? And why has he done the crime in the first place? And in school we do a lot of counseling. Whenever we are in a boarding school, there's many occasions when we do a lot of counseling. Now, this
Mm.
counseling, I don't know whether it happens in the Indian prisons, for what extent, to what extent. And as a parent, what counseling are we doing?
Yeah.
Okay,
So I,
the police officer.
yeah,
Yeah.
Meenakshi ma'am, I feel that fortunately we have juvenile prisons for children, and I think that a lot of our prisons have good facilities now. So there are counseling sessions that are held, especially in the juvenile prisons. So I think there's a lot of corrective measure that's being taken. But you're very right in saying that we need to see what we can do. But I think even more, the thing that we need to pay attention to is whether we are educating and giving the children the right kind of values at home as well as in school. So, preventing them from doing anything which is a crime would be a better approach. But yes, sometimes these things happen, and how do we protect them? But I want to ask, just before we move on anymore, I want to ask Divyanshu what prompted this question, because I don't think that's connected to what we were reading. Divyanshu, why
Uh,
did this
uh,
question come up in your mind?
Ma'am, because yesterday is our counseling classes and sir asked to us for this
Okay.
research.
So that was
Yeah.
playing on your mind.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Now, if you look at the way, I'm just connecting it to what we just read. And if you look at the way Gerald was being educated and the way his mother was kind of supporting him and the rest of the family was trying to take care of him, that's such a caring atmosphere, right? So he grew up there in the midst of so much care, and he was not being given a moral lesson or any preaching was happening there, but a lot of values were being taught to him. And the way he was growing with these values of not only protecting human beings, but also everything around him, caring for nature and the creatures in nature. So when we read all these things, without going into discussions and without analyzing all this, we imbibe a lot of things. We learn a lot of values. That's what is important for us to do. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. I think, yeah.
Divyansh, you wanted to comment? Divyansh, you have your hand up. You're on mute if you're speaking. Okay, Krishna Singh. Okay, sorry, Divyansh, go ahead. Can't hear you. Can't hear you, Divyansh. Why don't you put it in chat? Yeah, Krishna. You're on mute, Krishna. Oh, Krishna, put the hand down. Divyansh, you can try again. Otherwise, we can move on. Yeah, you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. So put it in chat, please. Uh, there was also, you know, the chapter we read, and ma'am then emphasized it, how we learn if we write, right? Uh, so learning is actually also a science, right? And a lot of people have talked about how children learn, but one of the ways, at least when I was in school, which we thought we were learning, actually are not learning, is by just reading the same thing again and again and underlining. You don't actually end up learning. So, how to learn also is something that I hope that, you're sort of being exposed to and figuring out, because that's very important. how you learn. Ma'am, do you want to add to that? You're on mute.
Yeah, yes, Jugjeev sir, what you said is so valuable because how you learn is extremely important, and this way of learning will really help because even scientifically it has been proved that there are nerves in our fingers that are directly connected to that portion in the brain which helps us remember things. So it is really helpful for us to keep jotting down and noting down, and that helps us to remember. So there are these connections, and that is the only reason why in classrooms it's not just reading, it's also about writing and doing more and more practice. So that's how we remember. Repetition makes us remember, writing makes us remember. So, and also association. Now, see the way Gerald says that every time he thinks of math or numbers, the picture of his first math teacher, George, comes into his mind and he can actually visualize the whole thing. So that's learning by association. So, children, even you will, if you start paying attention and you reflect, you will see that there are many things which you remember because you learnt it in a certain way which was different from the usual way of learning. All right. So when you do something, when you actually go onto the ground and learn that, then you remember that better. Okay.
So instead of reading the same thing again and again, you can close the book, try and remember in your mind, write down notes, or
Yes.
try and explain it to somebody else
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
and practice, as ma'am said.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Let's hope that you will be able to write something down for us as a reflection on this chapter because there's a lot of learning that has happened today. And if you can write down whatever one or two things that you're taking back from this chapter as a takeaway, it'll be lovely for you to share that with us. We look forward to hearing from you. And the next week, maybe we can look at what you have reflected upon. Okay?
yes,
All
yes.
right, sir. We'll stop here for
Okay.
now and we can
Yep,
carry.
yep,
Thank
yep,
you.
yep,
Thank
yep.
you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. So today is the first time we are doing this, I think, of where we're reading two different English books in the same day. Manisha ma'am had to go off somewhere. So that's why we are doing this. Now, this book, which I'm reading, what you're looking for is in the library by Michiko Aoyama. Uh, we finished chapter one last time. Each chapter has a story of a different person, but there is some commonality in the stories, and you will see that, uh, you know, as we read the story. But before that, I just wanted to ask for some of you who remember the last chapter, any thoughts on the last chapter? I know some of you have written a few things about it in your blogs, and we'll try and read those. But any other thoughts on the story of Tomoka that we read? Anything you want to say, or anything, any learning that you may not have shared? Okay, so that was a good story, I thought, of how uh, she was mentally in a bit of a rut, so to speak, right? Uh, she was, you know, the thoughts that were going on in her mind were negative about herself, and suddenly that changed. She had a dialogue with Kiriyama, and then she, decided to go to the library, and then that changed a lot of things in her life. And she made small changes, and then her life changed. So whenever we're not feeling good, don't necessarily have to make some big huge change. Just as small changes over time uh, add up to a lot. Okay, so let's get into this story. And this story is about somebody called Rio Urase. Okay, so Rio 35, accounts department of a furniture manufacturer. It all began with a spoon, a small flat handled silver spoon that caught my eye on a shelf. I picked it up for a closer look and saw a tulip like chevron. Tulip is a flower, as you know, and chevron is a particular shape, right? A geometric shape. On the end, with an engraved sheep design, right? Engraved is somebody is sort of written it onto the metal, silver in this case. It was a teaspoon, I guessed from the size. I lingered a while to gaze at it. Lingered means stayed on. Then continued browsing, which is looking around, through the dimly lit shop, still holding it in my hand. The shelves were crowded with old bric-a-brac. Bric-a-brac is, old things. Pocket watches, pocket candlesticks, glass bottles, insect specimens, and indeterminate bones. Indeterminate is what you can't determine. Screws, nails, and locks. Numerous dingy objects caught in time's deep embrace. Dingy is normally associated with dark. Waited expectantly under the light of a naked bulb. Why expectantly? Because they're just objects there, and the author has put life into them, suggesting that they're lying on the shelves and waiting to be picked up, just like the spoon was picked up. I was a high school student at the time. That day, I had got off the train one stop early and was taking a detour to avoid going straight home because of a minor spat with my mother in the morning. Detour is when you don't follow your normal route, right? You take, or you just go off the route for a bit. As I wandered the streets of the city on the edge of Kanagawa Prefecture, prefecture is an administrative district in Japan, I came across a shop set slightly apart from the main business district with a sandwich board sign propped outside the entrance. Enmokuya, it read. Smoke tree? From what I could make out through the window, it looked like an antique shop. On a whim, I went inside. Right? The sandwich board is a display board. It's like a triangle. You must have seen it in many places. I'm sure you have them in school as well. Uh, Antiques, I hope you understand antiques. Antiques are old things, right? And on a whim, it's uh, just a fancy. Something came to his mind and he did it. So on a whim, I went inside. A long-faced, middle-aged man in a knitted cap, whom I took to be the owner, was behind the till, the desk or the cashier. He had the same fusty air as his stock. Fusty is old-fashioned, which is often the case with proprietors of shops that sell old things. While I was looking around, he fiddled about with a clock and then a music box, not appearing to pay any attention to me. The spoon in my hand became warm from my body heat and melded, which means blended, snugly, that's warmly, against my palm. After some hesitation, I bought it for 1500 yen. That was a lot of money for a high school student to pay for one spoon. I had no idea of its value, but I couldn't bring myself to put it back on the shelf. This is pure silver, the man in the cap told me. It's a teaspoon made in England. When was it made? I asked. He put on reading glasses to scrutinize the back of the spoon in 1905. When I looked for myself, all I could see were 4 marks consisting of letters and pictures, none of which were numerals. How can you tell? The owner of the shop chuckled. Chuckled is laughing, and smiled for the first time. A genuine smile that made me warm to him, even though he hadn't answered my question. He was plainly passionate about antiques and confident of his own eye. But the shop and its owner left quite an impression on me. I thought they were pretty cool. I took the spoon home and tried to imagine its history. Who had owned it in England in the 1900s? What did people eat with it? Maybe an aristocratic lady had placed it daintily on her saucer during afternoon tea. Daintily is in a graceful, womanly way. Or maybe a mother fed her young son with it, bringing the spoon gently up to his mouth, and long after he'd grown stout and middle aged, he still remembered that spoon with affection. Or maybe it had been in a family of 3 girls who fought over it every meal. Maybe. My imagination ran wild. I never grew bored of looking at my spoon. After that, I often dropped by an Mokoya on my way home after school. The owner's name was Mr. Ebigawa, I learned. He wore a knitted cap all year around, wool in winter and autumn, and cotton or hemp in summer and spring. Enmokuya was a place where I could forget everything. All the petty worries of daily life, troubles at school, mum's nagging, anxieties about my future. No matter how stressed out I felt, all I had to do was open that door to step into another world. It was a place where I could be myself, where I was accepted for what I was. Usually, all I did was look, which I felt bad about. But I did buy a few small things with the limited resources of my pocket money. In time, Mr. Ebigawa and the regular customers opened up and started talking to me. They taught me the history and language of antiques. After I had been frequenting his shop for about a year, Mr. Ebigawa taught me about hallmarks, which is what the 4 marks on the back of my spoon were called. They indicated the maker's mark, the purity mark because it's silver, the assay office mark. Assay office is the office which is tested for quality or purity, and the date of manufacture. This box with the letter N tells us it was made in 1905. I learned to identify the combination of letters and boxes used in place of numbers. That was such an English sensibility, I thought, to use a system like this instead of ordinary numbers. My spoon felt even more precious after Mr. Ebigawa told me that the sheep was probably a family crest, or perhaps just one part of it. The sheep wasn't just decorative, it was a sign of respect for the family's lineage. That seemed so cool. I was infatuated with antiques, with the antiques world, and in awe of Mr. Ebigawa. Infatuated is attracted to, and always looking up to somebody. So we just read about the family crest. Can you think of an Indian example of family crest? Where do you come across family crest in India? Family crest in India. Any thoughts? Where do you come across family crest in India? right? If you go back in history, right, 447, British, before the British, we had kings. Many of the kings had their own crest, right? They'd go into battle, they'd have their own flags, their own crest, right? So that is our example. Okay, so the chapter starts with Rio of having had a fight with his mother. So anybody want to talk about it? Does it happen to you? Small fights with your mother?
Yes, sir.
Okay, tell us, Rashmi, what happened last time? What did you do about it? Tell us more what happens every day, every week, once a month, how often? What is normally the issue? Who's going to volunteer? Somebody will be, everybody must be going through it. Yes, Devyansh. Anybody else? Nobody's volunteering. Surely around what you want to wear, you're not eating, study. Anybody? No fights at home? Okay, that's not possible, right? Okay, let's try another question. So Rio gets into this shop when he's not feeling that good, right? When he's under stress. What do you do when you feel stressed? What do you guys do when you feel stressed? Very quiet suddenly.
Hello, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, Harshit.
I'll answer the first question first because I have had a lot of fights with my daughter, right? And I I have it regularly, and that in a way clears the air. It's just that we are unhappy about certain thing and we do about it. Now she's much older. Of course, I don't quarrel with her over what she's wearing and what she's eating and all those things. But there are other issues. And as for stress, I think for me, I mean, when I'm in stress, I prefer to sit by myself and go within to see why it is happening and what are the solutions. Of course, children will have something else to say, but that's it.
Well, Harshita says she talks to someone, friends, family, etc. That's one good way. Anybody else? Any other thoughts? Right? If you want to go back and talk about also fighting with the mother or at home. I mean, I think it must be happening almost every second day, right? Quite routine. Small things keep happening at home, right? Nobody? Okay, then let's go ahead. Today, Enmokuya no longer exists. One day, not long before I finished high school, I arrived to find a handwritten notice posted on the door that read, "Store closed." And with that, my relationship with Mr. Ebigawa came to an abrupt end. I never went through its door again. That was 18 years ago. Maybe that's why I've always yearned to have my own shop. just like Enmukuya. One day. Even now, at the age of 35, I still dream of it. One day, when I have enough money saved up, I will quit my job, find somewhere to open a shop, and curate the shelves. One day. But will one day ever come? After university, I left home and started working the accounts department of a furniture manufacturer. It's not a big company, nor does it make expensive products, but the constant demand for reasonably priced informal furniture means that business is stable. How do you do this again? My boss, Mr. Taguchi, the department chief, twists around in his seat to ask. Not again, I think. He asked the same thing yesterday. The company recently introduced a whole raft of new software that is believed that is beyond Mr. Taguchi's grasp. Every time he gets stuck, he asks me, despite being in the middle of an expenditures check, I stop what I'm doing. Standing behind his chair, I explain what to do. Aha, so that's how it's done, he says loudly, exaggeratedly moving his rubbery lips. Thanks for helping, Horace. You really know your stuff. I return to my desk and resume the expenditures check. I like working with numbers. Our job in the accounts department is to keep track of the company's finances rather than manage them. So the work is not that difficult and there's no risk. So the work is not so difficult and there is no risk. So when you think of something which is not difficult and there's no risk, what does it tell you? Okay, think about it. It's not difficult and there's no risk. What does that tell you? Myra, you want to try? Not so difficult and there's no risk. What does that mean? Think. You can put it in the chat if you like. Yes, Rashmi. You have to unmute yourself. Oh, so Talat, the question is, if something is easy and there is no risk, what does that suggest? I mean, what does that mean to you? Something is easy, has no risk. What will that activity lead to? Okay. Okay, maybe question is not so clear. Yeah, so that's the point, Harshita. It's not a challenge. If it's easy and there's no risk, it's not a challenge, right? So it's just routine, mundane stuff. You can keep doing it all your life, nothing much will come out of it. That's the point. Normally, if there is a challenge, uh, it's more interesting, right? So that's what his job is about, right? Easy and there's no risk. It's dry, unexciting work that doesn't require great passion. Easy enough if you like that kind of thing, right? So life can be fairly boring, right? Urase, how about a drink tomorrow? We could go to the same place as last month. They're discounting beer for their third anniversary, Mr. Taguchi calls out. I glanced at the bundle of receipts in my hand. Sorry, but I am taking a day off tomorrow. Oh, right. Luckily, I had an excuse ready. Mr. Taguchi likes to talk, so going out with him can be tedious. Tedious is tiring. Not that I'm brave enough to pass over every invitation from my boss, but with end of year parties coming up, when I will have to show my face, I have good reason to avoid any invitations now as much as possible. Mr. Taguchi spins around on his chair to face me and leans in close. Date with your girlfriend? I guess you could say that. Ah, I thought so. My bad luck. He slaps himself on the forehead theatrically. I laugh dutifully while inwardly cursing myself for giving away too much. Mr. Taguchi looks at me pointedly and smirks. You've been seeing this girl quite a lot. For, you've been seeing this girl quite a while. Getting hitched soon? Oh, what's this? I say, changing the subject. These figures don't add up. Looks like Amano in the sales department again. He always messes up. I'll have to get him to redo them. I look at Mr. Taguchi with a forced smile. I really don't understand why people can't do their expenses reports properly. Mr. Taguchi laughs and turns back to his screens. See, that was a good way, right, to avoiding answering a question. Any other thoughts or how you can avoid answering questions somebody's asking you? Any thoughts or what you may be doing? Somebody asks you a question, you don't want to respond. How do you deal with that? Right? You just saw one way, right? Where you just changed the subject, started talking of something else. What are other ways? Right? When somebody asks you a question and you don't want to respond, how do you deal with that? Harshita says, can just smile. Yes, that's one way. It works, I think. You just smile and don't say anything. Anybody else? Any other thoughts? What else can we do? Okay. The internal phone line rings. Miss Yoshitaka, my 20 something assistant, who has only recently started at the company, reaches over with a very air from a desk opposite mine to pick up. Reaches over the very air means that, either she's tired. After a few brusque words, she presses hold and turns to me. Mr. Urase, call for you. Oh, who from? A man. Didn't get his name. I look at her with surprise. Hank, I say, and pick up the receiver. The call is from the Overseas Operations Department. The company is preparing to import some new interior furnishings from the UK, and we in accounts have been asked to prepare a draft budget. Mr. Taguchi is in charge of handling this, but for some reason, I'm always the one people in other departments. I'm always the one people in other departments ask for, probably so they can enjoy pushing me around. I press hold and turn to Mr. Taguchi. Is the draft budget for the UK brand ready? Apparently, it is needed for a meeting tomorrow. Ah, that! I couldn't finish it. All those pounds instead of dollars, couldn't get my head around it. And I'm not as good as English as you are, Rase, he said. fixing me with a fore pleading look. Fore is artificial. My heart drops. Don't worry, I will do it, I reply after a beat. Appreciate it. I owe you. Mr. Taguchi raised acknowledgement. Meanwhile, Miss Yoshitaka is trimming her split end. That about sums up my workplace. I have an incompetent boss and an assistant with attitude. It could be worse. I know, but it's at times like this that I want to quit. I have a hard time knowing how to deal with people. It's a good thing I was assigned to accounts, my first choice, and not somewhere like sales. But I know that no matter where I work, the stress of human relations is not something I can easily escape. My dream is to quit this job and open my shop and open my own shop. I'd fill it with the things I like and never have to talk to anybody except customers who are like-minded antique lovers. But I can't quit. I have less than 1 million yen saved up, which is not enough to start a business. And with all the work I have to do, it's impossible to find time for the necessary study and prep. But time is slipping by. Time is slipping away while I'm stuck in this office grind. Will, will it ever be possible to walk through the door of my very own antique shop? The only thing I'm sure of is that tonight I'll have to do overtime again. Okay, we're going to stop here. So, Rio Rase says that he has difficulty in human relations, right? It seems he doesn't like to have people around, right? So, why do you think that could be the case? Any thoughts? Why could it be the case? Right? He has a hard time knowing how to deal with people, he said. Why do you think it could be the case? Any thoughts? Any thoughts? Talat, you want to try? Myra, Vinny, you want to try? Why do you think it could be the case?
I think that because he can deal with many people, that's why.
So he's saying that he doesn't like, right, dealing with people. I have a hard time knowing how to deal with people, right? Uh, that's what he's saying. And he also says, but I know no matter where I work, the stress of human relations is not something I can really escape, right? So he feels stressed in dealing when talking to people, right? So I'm trying to ask, I'm asking you, why do you think it's the case? Have you come across people who have difficulty talking to other people? Why do you think such a thing happens?
So because sometimes they are not confident and they are nervous of speaking.
Yeah, they're not confident is one, is one certainly, uh, one reason. They've not been exposed to dealing with other people and they've spent a lot of time alone. So that's why that could be the other reason, right? Because they're not confident and they're not, uh, you know, not had exposure, so the confidence hasn't built, and they're worried about how they look, so they come across, so they rather be alone and not deal with people, right? So that could be a reason. Okay, so Harshita, you can stop sharing. I will just quickly get into the Joy of Learning diaries, and we can just uh, look at some of what kids have posted, right? Uh, yes, Lalit, you want to say something? You have your hand up. Yeah, Lalit, you have your hand up. You're also on mute. Go ahead.
Very good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon.
Dalit Karbanda this side. Actually, I took this class for the first time.
Right,
And I'm an educator in Gyan. Okay,
right.
and it was
Where are you based?
I am from Hapur and I am teaching in Gyan Ananta.
In Gyan.
Okay, that's in Pilakwa.
Ah, okay, okay. I've heard of Pilakwa, yeah.
And it was a very meaningful and I am feeling very grateful attending this class. Thank you so much for the class.
Ah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So tell us, what did you like about it? What are you liking about it?
The conversation you did in between the class with the students and the message of the learning in the previous lecture, that was it should be more beyond the classroom. It should be that a person or a student should be able to apply the learning.
Right,
And, that was a major outcome from the session from today for me.
right, right. Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is is Akansha around? Somebody like to read what she wrote? Any volunteers to read? Kansha was there some time back. I don't know if she's still there. Any volunteers to read?
Sir, can I?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
In today's reading session, Jugi sir and Nilashi ma'am completed a chapter about the narrator who feels unsure about life and the future, inspired by the book Guri and Gura. The narrator learns patience and persin- persistence as they
Persistence.
persistence as they repeatedly try to make a castella cake. After many failures, the narrator finally succeeds, gains confidence, and learns to keep improving step by step. The story teaches that hard work, patience, and learning from mistakes prepare us for our future opportunities. Life is a journey of patience, practice, kindness, and self discovery. When we keep learning and moving forward without fear, we may one day find our own giant egg. Later, Manisha ma'am held a quiz to guess the story, its name, and its value of money. We read The Journey of One Rupee Coin, which describes how a single rupee coin passes through the hands of different people in the society. For some, 1 rupee is very valuable and helps meet basic needs, while for others, it, it holds little importance. The lesson shows that money itself is neither good nor bad. Its value depends on how and by whom it is used.
Yeah, that's by Roshni. Sorry, I don't know why I thought it was Akansha. That's Roshni Bhagat. Okay. The next one, Deen Shah. Is Deen Shah around? No. Somebody else like to read it? Myra, I think you raised your hand earlier. Myra, do you want to read?
Yes,
Uh,
sir.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
One sec. Yeah. So this we start from right on top.
Yes. This story, What You're Looking For is in the Library, taught by Jugjeet sir, was inspiring and meaningful. It helped us understand that solutions to many problems can be found through learning, self reflection, and proper guidance. The story emphasized the importance of books and libraries in shaping our thoughts and broadening our understanding. Later, Manisha ma'am engagingly conducted another story session. She began the class with a quiz on a 1 rupee coin, making the session interactive from the start. She then introduced the whistling schoolboy and other stories, asking us to identify the story names using pictures. This approach encourages active participation and thoughtful discussion among the students. Overall, the class was informative and interactive. It helped develop our interest in stories and literature, making the learning experience enjoyable.
Right. The next one is by Akansha. Can you read this as well, please? Yeah.
Through the first chapter of What You're Looking For is in the Library and the story of Guri and Gura, I learned many meaningful lessons. A line from the end of the chapter really stayed with me. For such a short story, it's interesting how everybody remembers it differently. In today's reading session, Jugjeev sir also showed us how the same story can be understood differently by different people. During the interaction, I heard Astha say that, for her, the story signifies the value of finding significance in small things. For me, the story highlighted the importance of teamwork, friendship, and collaboration shown by the two mice as they made the giant castella cake. This reminds me of the words of a famous brain researcher who believes that there is no one size fits all approach to learning. Everybody has their own thoughts and lessons from a story, and I really enjoyed listening to these different perspectives. After answering the quiz given by Manisha ma'am, I learned many things about the value of a 1 rupee coin. The story's theme focused on the journey of a 1 rupee coin, and starting with the quiz helped us think about the story's message in advance. From beginning to the end, we see a boy who wants to buy jalebi but only has 1 rupee. To earn more money, he tries to do many things, but in the end, he still gets only 1 rupee coin. This time, a shining one. He then goes to the jalebi seller, gives him the shining coin, and the man smiles and gives him a bag of jalebi in return. From the story, I learned the value of even small amounts of money that we often ignore at this moment. I also remember a line that goes, extraordinary things come from tiny beginnings. The jalebi that he wanted so badly finally came into his hands through a 1 rupee coin that he once felt was useless. This taught me that we should value what we have, no matter how small it may seem.
Okay. Thank you, Myra. Let's just uh, see if I can go back to the earlier page and uh, हिंदी में पढ़ते हैं. Okay, there was some Lotus Petal. Thank you for your reflections. We are running out of time, so I just want to make sure we have some Hindi reflections covered. हिंदी में कौन पढ़ेगा जी? हिंदी में कौन पढ़ेगा?
समय आई।
हाँ जी, प्लीज.
कम साधना बड़ा सपना, सुनीता त्रिपाठी। रणजी की कहानी हमें सिखाती है कि सफलता हमेशा बड़ी पूंजी से नहीं आती। छोटी शुरुआत भी बड़े सपनों को पूरा कर सकती है। ₹1 का सही और समझदारी से उपयोग बहुत लाभ दे सकता है। मेहनत करने वाला व्यक्ति कभी असफल नहीं होता। धैर्य और निरंतर प्रयास से रास्ता आसान बनता है। ईमानदारी ने किया गया काम हमेशा सफल देता है। पैसा तभी बढ़ता है जब उसे सही दिशा में लगाया जाए। हर छोटा काम के बाद परिणाम ला सकता है। दूसरों की मदद से समाज आगे बढ़ता है। आत्मविश्राम सफलता की पहली सीढ़ी है। इस कहानी से हमें आत्मनिर्भर बनने की प्रेरणा मिलती है। सुनीता त्रिपाठी, सनबीम ग्रामीण स्कूल। एक रुपए जिस एक रुपए जिसने लंबा सफर तय किया। यह हमें बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण बातें बताता है। आशा और सकारात्मक मुख्य पात्र रणजी एक पुराने सिक्के के बदले अपने पसंद की चीज जलेबी पाने के लिए हार नहीं मानता है। यह सिखाता है कि सकारात्मक दृष्टिकोण और आशा रखते से हम मुश्किल से मुश्किल लक्ष्य भी पा सकते हैं। धैर्य और निरंतरता। रणजी का ₹1 का सिक्का कहानी में हाथों से गुजरता है और उसे अपनी मंजिल पाने के लिए काफी इंतजार करना पड़ता है। यह कहानी बताती है कि सफलता के लिए धैर्य और लगातार प्रयास करना जरूरी है। संतोष। अंत में अब्रर्जी को अपनी मेहनत और लंबी प्रतीक्षा के बाद जलेबी मिलती है तो वह खुशी का अनुभव करता है। यह सिखाता है कि अंततः सच्चा संतोष हमें अपनी मेहनत के फल से ही मिलता है। शिवानी यादव, कक्षा 6। आज की कक्षा में हमें एक सिक्के का महत्व बताया गया जिसने लंबा सफर तय किया। यह हमें बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण बातें बताता है। आशा और सकारात्मकता। मुख्य पात्र प्रिया एक पुराने सिक्के के बदले अपने पसंद की चीज जलेबी पाने के लिए हार नहीं मानता है। यह सिखाता है कि सकारात्मक दृष्टिकोण और उम्मीद रखने से हम मुश्किल से मुश्किल लक्ष्य भी पा सकते हैं। धैर्य और निरंतरता। प्रिया का ₹1 का सिक्का कहानी में हाथों से गुजरता है और उसे अपनी मंजिल पाने के लिए काफी इंतजार करना पड़ता है। यह कहानी हमें यह बताता है कि सफलता के लिए धैर्य और लगातार प्रयास करना जरूरी है। संतोष। अंत में जब प्रिया को अपनी मेहनत और लंबी प्रतीक्षा के बाद जलेबी मिलती है तो वह खुशी का अनुभव करती है और सोचती है कि मेहनत करने वाले को फल जरूर मिलता है। यह हमें यह शिक्षा देती है कि अगर आप किसी चीज को दिल से चाहते हैं तो वह कहीं न कहीं जाकर पूरी होती है। धन्यवाद। नाम शिवानी सिंह, कक्षा 6।
हाँ जी, ताहिर, कौन से स्कूल से हो तुम्हें?
सर, आई एम फ्रॉम सनबीम स्कूल बलिया।
हाँ, वेरी गुड, बहुत अच्छी तरह से पढ़ रहे हो आप। वेरी नाइस। चलो, वील स्टॉप हियर। तो एनीबडी कोई कुछ कहना चाहेगा? एनी अदर थॉट्स, एनीथिंग यू वांट टू raise, any questions, any doubts, anything else? Okay, so thank you everybody